All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're breaking down a massive military escalation in the Middle East. We're talking about a direct, large-scale conflict involving the United States, Israel, and Iran. For years, this has been a shadow war, but now it has burst right out into the open for the whole world to see.
You know, the opening shot wasn't even a missile, it was a message. In an early morning video, the US president did something really unusual. He skipped the traditional declarations of war and spoke directly to the people of Iran. He basically framed this entire assault not as an invasion, but as a chance for them to start a revolution.
And just like that, the abstract became terrifyingly real. This image, coming out of Tehran on February 28th, shows the immediate aftermath of those first strikes. It's a stark, powerful confirmation that all the talk, all the threats, had just turned into actual weapons, shaking the entire region to its core.
Okay, so let's really dive into the why behind this. What were the objectives of such a massive, unprecedented operation? Because this wasn't just about weakening Iran's military. No, the stated goals were way more ambitious than that. The first huge piece of news to come out was about a decapitation strike. Both U.S. and Israeli officials confirmed it. The very first assault successfully targeted and killed Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, inside his secure compound. This was a move designed to just pull the plug on the regime's command structure from the very beginning.
What's just staggering here is the sheer scale of the ambition. I mean, look at this list of official U.S. war aims. It points to nothing less than a total transformation of the country, complete regime change, getting rid of all their strategic weapons, and completely dismantling their navy. This goes so far beyond a limited, tactical strike.
So how is a conflict like this actually being fought? Well, it's a fascinating clash of completely different strategies. It's a textbook example of what military analysts call asymmetrical warfare. You've got one side leveraging unbelievably advanced technology, while the other is relying on sheer numbers and disruptive, unconventional tactics.
And this slide really breaks down the two sides of that coin. On one hand, you've got the US and Israel with complete air superiority, using things like the F-35 fighter jet. They're also launching crippling cyber attacks, hacking into communications, and even traffic cameras to time their strikes. On the other hand, Iran's response is all about volume and hitting strategic choke points. We're talking about unleashing waves and waves of missiles at Israel and US bases, while also trying to shut down shipping in the critical Strait of Hormuz. And this right here, wow, this brilliantly illustrates that technological edge we're talking about. This is Israel's Iron Beam. It's a high-energy laser defense system. So instead of firing super expensive interceptor missiles, it just shoots a beam of light to destroy incoming rockets and drones. It costs a fraction of the price, and get this, it has a virtually unlimited magazine. It's an absolute game-changer against the kind of swarm attacks Iran uses. This assessment from the Al-Habtoor Research Center really just hits the nail on the head. The early days of this war showed that, technologically speaking, it wasn't a fair fight at all. Iran's older air force and its air defense systems were simply outmatched, revealing this huge gap in capabilities for the whole world to see.
Of course, a conflict of this magnitude is never just contained to the battlefield. The economic shockwaves were felt almost instantly, all across the globe, and especially in the energy markets.
For the global economy, and for a lot of us, everything came down to this one number, 14%. That's how much the price of Brent crude oil spiked in just the first week. Think about it. When a major artery of the world's energy supply is suddenly at risk, markets don't wait around. They react, and they react fast. And that's not just a number on a screen. For everyday people, that's a direct hit at the gas pump and at the grocery store. Now, what's really interesting is when you put this into a bit of historical context. Look at that 14% jump compared to other major crises. It's definitely significant. But notice how much sharper and bigger the shock was during the first Gulf War. What's also fascinating here is how quickly the price came back down in the weeks that followed this new conflict. It suggests that maybe the markets priced in the risks super fast, or they just didn't believe a long-term disruption was really going to happen.
You know, in times of serious turmoil and high inflation, money always flows towards what investors see as safety. And not all assets are created equal. This chart shows a really fascinating historical pattern. Infrastructure tends to be incredibly resilient, doing much better than traditional stocks and bonds. And why is that? Well, think about it. Things like roads, ports, and power grids are absolutely essential during a conflict, and they're even more critical for rebuilding afterward.
So, yeah, these economic ripple effects created some pretty clear winners and losers, almost immediately. It's probably no surprise that defense contractors and energy companies saw their stock prices just surge.
But on the flip side, industries that rely heavily on fuel, like airlines and the chemical industry, they got hit with a double whammy: soaring costs and deep global uncertainty.
Okay, so with the battlefield in chaos and the markets reeling, a really fundamental question starts to emerge. Who is actually winning this thing? And you know what? The answer depends entirely on who you ask. We're seeing two completely different narratives, two different stories of this war taking shape.
So first, you have this cautionary perspective, which is summed up perfectly by Max Boot. From this viewpoint, yeah, the initial technological success was impressive, but that's beside the point. The real challenge isn't winning the first battle, it's figuring out how to navigate the messy aftermath. The fear is getting bogged down in a long, drawn-out conflict with no clear exit strategy, a lesson the world has learned the hard way many times before.
But then you hear this analysis, which paints a totally different picture. This perspective argues that Iran, just by withstanding that initial high-tech assault and managing to respond with its own asymmetric tactics, has fundamentally changed the rules of the game. In this view, survival itself is a form of victory, and Iran has demonstrated a whole new model for how a lesser power can confront a superpower.
So, with these two completely opposing views on the table, and the conflict being far, far from over, we're left trying to navigate a landscape that's just defined by profound uncertainty.
These are the massive questions hanging over everything right now. Will this attack actually trigger the regime's collapse like it was intended to, or will it backfire and cause the Iranian people to rally around the flag? How long can the global economy handle this kind of instability? And then there's the most dangerous question of all. What happens if this conflict crosses the nuclear threshold? The answers to these questions will define our world for years to come.
And that really leaves us with this final thought to chew on. Is victory achieved by destroying targets with pinpoint precision from the air? Or is it found in simply surviving that onslaught and proving that you can still throw the entire global order into chaos? This conflict is forcing all of us to reevaluate what it even means to win a war in the 21st century.